Okay, class, here we go with our final part of our still life. This is part 5. And basically what we're going to do here is just kind of clean some things up, make some adjustments. After you have completed the still life, sometimes you'll take a look at it and you'll see some things that need corrected a little bit. And so that's what we're going to do. And this was my before and after. This is what it ended up looking like. Here are some supplies that might come in handy for this. I want to show you a technique called lifting. The kneaded eraser on the right hand side is a really good tool to use for this, but other erasers will work as well. I'm going to show you this technique using a sphere that we had done earlier in class. First, I want to evaluate my drawing and see where I need to do some work. And this morning when I came in, I noticed that there's a lot going on over here with this pear that needs to be corrected. And when you take a fresh look at it, a lot of times you'll see things that need to be corrected. You can see down here on the lower side, there's just some values that are just kind of off, and some of the shapes of the values are also off. Now I want to show you a little bit about lifting. This was a sphere that we did earlier in class, and this is a kneaded eraser. And basically what it is, it kind of reminds you of putty. When I pulled it here, I actually bumped into my camera, but what you can do with this is you can just pull it and knead it and put it into any shape you want. And then what you can do with this is kind of flatten it out a little bit and actually lift. And what I'm doing there is I'm just pressing and then pulling up value. This works better than rubbing, because with rubbing you're going to get these hard edges. You won't get any real soft edges. But with lifting, you can almost dab and just pull a tiny bit up at a time. And you can see some of the graphite that was lifted onto that eraser. And again, that's called lifting. Now, if you don't have one of those kneaded erasers, here's another thing that works really well for is you can put it into a point and do detail shading. That works really good for portrait drawing. You can also do this with an old dirty old white eraser. The problem with it is dirty. So what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to clean it up a little bit by just rubbing it on a piece of plain white paper until I get a nice kind of a white clean finish on it. And now what I can do is come in and, again, I'm lifting, I'm dabbing. I'm not rubbing, but I'm dabbing. And what that does is if there's any areas where you got your value in there too dark, you can dab it off and it'll give it a subtle change. It won't make it so drastic. This is an adjustable eraser. Do the same thing, clean it off a little bit on a piece of paper, regular piece of paper, and this will work good for details, and then you can just come in and dab. With that being said, you can also do this with just a regular pencil eraser like we have here. Clean it off and then just come in and do some dabbing, and that cleans it up pretty good. And you can also lightly rub as well. And you can see it lifted it off. Okay, so now what I'm taking a look at, I'm taking a real close look at the pear and where I need to make some adjustments. And just the tip of this pear, it's not very accurate as far as the values, how deep the values are, and the stem of the pear too is kind of, it's too small and it just doesn't look right. First thing I'm going to do is lift off some of the values where I got too dark on the pear. And then I'm going to look at some that need to be darkened up a little bit. So I'm going to come in there and kind of polish those up a little bit, just get a little bit darker. And again, guys, now that this is in normal speed, you can see about the pace that I go here when I'm shading. I don't go real fast. It's not a race. You're allotted quite a bit of time on this, so use the time wisely. It gives you a nice little break from all the book work and all the other stuff to come in here and just kind of relax and just lightly put in the values. Don't get into a hurry. Don't get into a rush. Very, very soft with the pencil too. Not putting a lot of pressure on it at all. And I try as much as I can to keep it going in a consistent direction, although sometimes you can't help but to change the direction a little bit. Up near the top of the pear, the stem of the pear, I want to fix that up a little bit. And if I work right there with my model, just real close to it, I have a better view of what I'm drawing. And I could tell that the stem was a little too small when I initially drew it, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm paying attention to where there might be any highlights or any texture, and I'm just making that just a little bit bigger. There's also areas in around there that need to be cleaned up. That area of value was just a little too small, and I had to make it just a little bit bigger. And just doing some detail work, very fine point on my pencil, putting a little bit of value just to the left of the stem there. You can see that part that has a little bit of a shadow on it. You want to include that as well. And then start to layer in some of the values in the background. There's an area just to the left there that I really need to bring that value down a little bit, and I have a feeling that when I speed it up here, that's where I'm going to be working. Little cleaning up, little dabbing, and now I'm ready to do a little bit more work on some other areas, namely right in around here around the picture, the handle. Values could be a little bit darker up in there. I'm not going to go too crazy on it because I do kind of like the way that the highlights give that handle depth. I'm going to work in some of the background here as well. The drawing's not complete until you actually put the background in. One of the things that putting the background in, what that does is when you're drawing a contour line, it remains a line, but there's actually not a line there. It's actually an edge. And by putting in the background, lightly putting in the background, you change that line into an edge. Speed up the background shading a little bit, but it did take some time to do. I want to go inside that picture. I needed to stop because I wanted to show you right in around this picture handle here. I needed to do a little bit more work, and actually even after I did this, I went back in and made some more corrections. Just needed to be I just basically was tightening up that edge. I noticed when I was looking at it as a photograph, it had a kind of a ratty edge to it, so I wanted to clean that up. I knew I was going to do that coming in. I kind of had a plan. Just trying to clean that up a little bit. Okay, very good. We're going to take a look here at the top and the background. I want to do a little bit more shading in that background. Now the top of the picture there, that highlight part, when you start putting in the background, that's going to accentuate that highlight. And again, you start to lose the line and you create an edge. Just going in there and putting in some background. Now down in here, although it looks like I'm going pretty fast, I really had to take my time because I didn't want to lose the kind of some of the quality lines I had on the stems of the grapes. So I actually slowed it down there quite a bit. Okay, now what I want to show you, one of the final things I want to do is put in some really dark values. And I have this ebony pencil. It's a very soft pencil. They also make 6B pencils that are really soft and create really dark values. If you have access to one of those, this is the part where it can really start to make your drawing kind of stand out a little bit. If you don't have one, that's okay too. But we want to finish up and do the very end with the darkest values that we can see. And so with my ebony pencil, I'm going to hit those values that are really dark. Especially around the bottom of the pear and the left-hand side of the still life, that's where it's pretty dark. I'm going to bump that up just a little bit. Also going to work at some of the cast shadows and some of the grapes. Some of these grapes are a lot darker than what I initially had, so I want to darken them up a little bit. I want to go too crazy on it and just get in small areas just to bring them out a little bit. Actually adding that little bit of value will actually bring them out a little. Okay, so there's where I'm done. And here we go with the finished product. Hope you enjoyed it.